Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dreamscape Horsemanship YouTube channel. I am being pickpocketed as we speak, so I'm going to put my gloves on before we start. So today we're standing here with Xerxes. He is a, I believe, 5-year-old. I'd have to double check his paperwork, but he's 5-year-old Percheron cross. They believe it's a quarter-horse saddlebred Percheron kind of mix. So he does have an interesting way of moving compared to most of the draft crosses we have. He moves in a much more saddlebred fashion. But so far, although he has struggled with a few exercises here and there, overall he's been doing really well, so we've been able to advance through the groundwork at a pretty decent pace. They did a lot of work with him before they sent him here, so he was already pretty far along. It's just a matter of us kind of filling in any blanks for our groundwork program, and then continuing on with his starting under saddle. So today, there's going to kind of be a two-part video today. It's all going to be in one video, but it's kind of a two-section. So we're at the stage of our groundwork series to where we start introducing what we call the girth rope. So Xerxes has already been saddled once, and I played with the girth rope in our previous session just because I was going through and seeing kind of everything he knows. But I haven't done the flank rope yet, so hopefully we'll kind of be able to troubleshoot some of that as we go. So basically, before I want to do the girth rope, there's a few exercises that I want them to be able to do. And if you've been following our groundwork series all the way through, your horse should already know how to do them. So those are disengage the hip, or yield the hip. Hi, buddy, yes, I'm talking about you. Yield the hip, yield the shoulder, descend around, disengage the hip at descend around to be able to bring to a stop. And hopefully you've sacked them out with your lead rope and your stick and string. So I didn't bring my stick and string with me today, but I have a nice long lead, and we've also got the lunge line, so we can start sacking them out with that. So basically, before I do any kind of girth rope stuff, I want to run through the exercises that he's already done. So, basically, I'm just going to start by, we're going to yield his hip. So following the same things that we did in our yielding of the hip video with Moose. And let him go. He's a little stiffer this direction, and he likes to push his shoulder on me, so I just hold my lead hand up there, my right hand, just to keep that shoulder kind of in place, or at least a little bit away from me. So both of the yields, both directions, pretty good. Next I'm going to ask him to bring his shoulder through. So this is where we struggle a little bit, but he's getting a lot better. He's just got a really big Percheron shoulder on him. So we're getting better. It's still a struggle spot, but we're improving. That's much better compared to how he was in the last video that we posted on our Facebook page. And we are going to see if we can't get a couple steps this direction, because this has been the really bad direction. So again, not bad. At least he's not necessarily stepping across the way I want him to, but we'll build on that. But he is giving that shoulder pretty nicely. He had to take a couple steps forward there, because he got a little stuck, but that's okay compared to how it was in our other video. If you go to our Facebook page and watch the video I posted last week, or earlier this week, you'll see how much he struggled with moving that right shoulder. So that is much, much improved. And the next exercise I want to make sure he can do, which is a little slick in here, we had a whole bunch of rain last night, and I've got more clouds on the way for this morning. But The next exercise is I just want to double check his send around. So right there, I'm just going to redirect him back the direction I wanted him to go. Drive that hip a little bit, there we go. And once he's out there, I don't pester him. A lot of people want to keep clutching or keep kissing. I only drive when he slows down. So I'm going to try and let him go all the way around on his own here. Much better. Whoa. And disengage that hip. He kind of already did it for me though. So if you were paying attention in that circle, you could see how nice and slack the line was. He's licking and chewing here. He wants to engage with me, so I'll let him. He's keeping a lot more slack in that line than he was the last couple days. The last couple days he kind of wanted to pull, and he did manage to get away from me a couple times here in the round pen, which is why we're still in the round pen. Before I start working him in a bigger area with stimulus like the obstacles, which will be in a different video when we introduce all the obstacles to him, I want to make sure that I can control him here first with all his feet before we get into a bigger area. I'm going to send him out towards the right. He's getting much better with his send to that direction. Give him the slack. Give that cue to trot. And then let him figure it out. Only drive when I need to drive. Much better. Look at that slack in that line. He's not pulling, except right by the gate there. And he's maintaining a very, very nice trot pace. Slide up. Disengage that hip. Very nice. So all of those exercises tell me that he's ready for the girth rope. We're ready for that next step, which will be getting him saddled. So one thing I want to do real quick, which I haven't checked yet, is our sacking out. I'm just going to throw the rope over so he's still a little unsure, especially after he's moved his feet a bunch. He doesn't quite like that flopping around, so we're still working on that. So I'm just holding. And we're just tossing the rope. And I'm not really too worried about if he flinches. If he starts moving around, I'm just going to ask him to step back up. Let him figure it out. His nostrils are a little crooked there, which means he's a little unsure. He's holding some tension in his face. Just going to let him calm down here a second. Because obviously if we can't throw this rope over his back, we're not going to be able to do the girth rope. I'm just going to keep going until we get hopefully relatively few flinches here. There we go. Better. I need to be able to toss this over his back without him flinching, and at the same time, the last half of this video is going to be the saddle pad and hopefully the surcingle, and then we move on to the saddle. So if I can't even throw a rope over his back, we're not going to be able to get the stirrups and the saddle and the cinches and the breast collar and everything over. Because regardless of what somebody else's tack is, so regardless of the tack that his owner uses, and regardless of what they plan on doing with him in the future, my Western saddle is fully fixed, which means it's got the breast collar, it's got the back cinch. It keeps my saddle more secure on these colts, and it teaches them how to be okay with other pieces of equipment. Even if the owner never plans on using a back cinch, he'll be used to it. Hold his head with me. It's alright if he wants to move around, but I'm just going to keep that head with me. So I want him to start looking to me for that safety spot. And then I'm going to go right back to what I was doing. Again, hold his head to me. Because this is all part of how to introduce this girth rope. I'm going to shorten my feel on his head just a little bit. Hopefully keep him a little more still. And once it's up there, he disengaged his hip and stood still, so I'm going to totally let him. I'm going to take that moment to love up on him because the rope is up there. I want him to know that that's not going to hurt him any. There we go. Nice flat palm, pushing down a little bit on his forehead, nice circular motions. That seems to really help them relax. Good job, citizens. Now I'm going to pull this down. We're going to try again. So he's still a little unsure, so we're just going to keep going. Good job. so once you can successfully throw the rope around on their back and their body, as if it was kind of like the same exercises as the stick and string, which you should have done before this particular exercise, you can then work on the girth rope. So I'm just going to get them to turn sideways here so I can show you guys what that means. So basically, the girth rope is to introduce the pressure around their middle where the saddle is going to be cinched up, which is why they need to be okay with the rope going over them. So you're going to toss the rope up there. You're going to let it sit on their back to where you can probably reach it from the other side, right where the girth of the saddle would sit. So he's got a wither that comes back a ways, so the girth's actually going to be a little bit, just a smidge further back on him, which is why we want a nice big breast collar for him. And then you're just going to rub the girth area, because again, if you followed our program, you've already done all the rubbing and the touching and the picking up of the feet. Your horse should have no problem right here. So I just kind of rub with my hand to let him know that I'm coming. And I'm going to reach down and grab that line, but I'm going to keep a relatively short feel of his head, because if he starts to get nervous, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and disengage that hip away from me, so that hopefully I don't end up with a horse on top of my head. You're just going to calmly reach that around, and I'm not going to put any pressure on it right now, I'm just going to hold it there. I'm going to let him think about it. I'm going to position it, and then I'm just going to pull down on the piece that's over his wither and pull up on the piece that's under him, and that's going to kind of, almost as if you're cinching up, but without the saddle. So I'm just going to pull down and up, hold that pressure there. There's no reaction, he's pretty relaxed, he's licking and chewing. I'm going to let that go. But I'm not going to drop that rope, because I want to do this a few times. If you would stop laterally flexing to me to see what's going on. So this piece, up on his back, I'm pulling down, pulling up on the piece in my right hand, squeezing, holding, no reaction, he's still pretty relaxed. Release that. Rub that girth area. If they are a little reactive, I'll rub up here on their wither too, and kind of pretty much everywhere where that rope is. And again, pull up, pull down, tighten that. No reaction, let go. Now's where we get a little trickier. I'm going to put a little bit of pressure there, and I'm going to hold with my right hand. I'm not going to tie it off with my hand in there, because that's a little safety hazard. But I'm just going to hold that. If I have to let go, I can let go. I'm going to bring his head towards me. I'm going to ask him to yield that hip a little bit with this pressure around his middle. I just want one little step. It's a different cue, but I'm just going to try and get him to move that hip one step. There we go. And although he braced to move his hip, he wasn't bracing at my hand and the pressure on his girth. And then holding that pressure there, I'm just going to kind of rub it back and forth, give it a little tug, and we're pretty relaxed. So I'm going to let that go. And even though we don't really cinch up from the right-hand side, I still need to be able to throw things over his back, so I'm going to repeat the same thing on this side. Let him know I'm coming with my hand. Easy. Yeah, so right there, I'm just going to bring my head not up behind his knee there and let him have a little bit of a moment to think about it. Reach across, there we go. And again, no pressure, I'm just going to hold those pieces there just slightly. And now I'm going to apply pressure. You can't really see it in the camera, but applying pressure. He's doing some nice lateral flexion, he's staying pretty relaxed. Letting it go. Thanking him for being a good boy. And applying pressure. And again, still nice low head set. We're not losing our marbles. Letting go. So I usually hold that pressure there for a few seconds, because I want them to get used to that pressure without reacting for at least a few minutes, because I got to be able to, when I finally throw a saddle on this guy, he's got to be able to handle that pressure for at least long enough for me to get the saddle done up. And depending on the day, that might take a couple minutes. So now we're going to introduce the flank rope. So usually I do this with a lariat, but because of how reactive he is, I don't want him to get any rope burn. And at least this way I can let it go if I have to. So you're going to start off in the same position you were. And this one, depending on the reactiveness of your horse, you might want a lunge line. So that way, if they do go to buck or kick, you have the length of lead to get them away from you around the round pen or in the arena, so you can kind of lunge them with the rope around them. And that will hopefully be our step 2 in a second once I'm done kind of showing you this step of it. So we're going to start over at the cinch. Gonna let him know I'm coming. Bring that up. And then I'm going to carefully shuffle it back to about where the back cinch would be. See, now he's like, what the heck is going on? And I'm going to apply light pressure. We're going to start off with light pressure. Around their girth, especially for him, he's already been saddled. I kind of already expected him to stand pretty quiet. But I know when they saddled him up for that first time, there was no back cinch. So I'm going to start with light pressure because most horses, a flank strap, you know, most horses are going to react the first couple times. So light pressure, let go. A little bit more pressure. Going to kind of rub it a little bit. Going to have a feel of his head just in case I need to disengage that hip. But we've got a foot cocked. We're pretty neutral in our head. We've got a little bit of a nostril flare, but I was moving his feet around a little bit before this video, so that's probably just, we're a big chubby horse, we need to catch our breath. Let go. Gonna rub him on that spot, make sure he's okay with my hand coming around that area, because obviously I'm gonna have to be able to grab the back cinch. Question is if it fits him, but we'll deal with that later. And now I'm gonna get a little stronger with my pressure. So all the reaction that I got there, besides him going, what the heck, was he kind of went to put weight on this back foot as if he was going to react, and then he kind of changed his mind. So we're going to let that go. Going to get a little bit stronger, and I'm going to kind of give a little bit of a tug. So far so good. All right, we're going to let that go. So now I'm going to take a nice long lunge line, and we're going to repeat the same thing. Make sure you don't get tangled up on it. That goes back to one of our videos about rope handling and the stick and string and just kind of knowing where your equipment is. So this is kind of going to be a two-part exercise for him. It's going to get him used to the girth rope while moving his feet, and it's going to kind of get him used to the line, which is going to be helpful when we start ground driving him in probably a few sessions. I'm going to bring that up. I'm going to use that lunge line clip to clip to itself. So that's going to have a little bit of pressure there. And now I want to make sure that none of this is tangled up. Give myself a nice long line. And now I'm just going to ask him to step forward as we were with our sending exercise. And I'm just going to hold both lines. You can see he's a little nervous there, which is okay. I'm going to make sure I'm directing him more with the line on his head. And then I'm just going to slowly take up a feel on this blue line and just kind of hold that pressure there. If he starts bucking, I'm just going to kind of direct his head around and keep him sending around and slip back to his flank, so that's okay. Holding that pressure there, because I don't want it to get any looser, because that's going to go right back to his sheath, and that's a little too far back. It's already slipping on me, so I'm going to disengage his hip. Good boy. Make sure he's not going to react with that line on the ground, and I'm just going to go back and readjust it so it's back up where the cinch was. I just want to have a little bit better of a feel of it this time to kind of keep it up at the front cinch for now. Right there we're starting to get a little bit of reaction because I'm pulling a little bit on that blue line. But that's okay, just keep directing his head. That's why I have to be pretty solid with the send around exercise first. Send him back out, holding that pressure there, holding that pressure there. I love how he's keeping his head tipped to me. And he's keeping pretty decent slack on that line except for right there. Now's the fun part. Now I'm going to kind of pull him out a little bit with a decent amount of my body weight asks for a rollback or a backup, those cinches are going to kind of tighten on him even without me having to get off and actually physically tighten them. Really depends how he moves his body. Every now and then that saddle could kind of grab him, so I want to make sure that he's okay with things grabbing him like that. So I'm just giving him a little bit of slack in his lead line in case he reacts. I can send him back out that way with just raising my hand up, but at the same time, I'm putting a decent amount of weight into that blue line. So he kind of moved a little bit there, but he's doing it calmly, so I'm not too worried. And now he's like, what the heck is going on? I don't like this. There we are. So he stayed pretty relatively calm there. So I'm going to send him back out. And I'm going to give a little bit of slack in this blue line so that we can get it back to a little bit further back where the back cinch is going to be. And then I'm going to give a little bit more tugging on it. You don't want to make them react, but at the same time, if they do, I don't get after them too hard unless they actually completely explode. If they completely explode, you went way over their threshold and you need to get them to calm back down, find where that threshold was, and then just kind of build them back up to that point. So it's kind of about halfway between right now where the back cinch would be and the front cinch. So I'm going to add pressure right there because I don't necessarily want it to slip any further back. So far, so good. Now I'm going to give him a little tug as he trots. Tug, 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 and disengage. Because that was beautiful, no reaction. Whoa, whoa. Now watch where he stepped forward there. That gave quite a bit of slack in that blue line. And I don't want him to step in that. So I'm going to unflip it. Whoop. Sorry, bud. I'm going to bring that over here. He still needs a decent amount of sacking out when it comes to ropes. He's fine with most other things, but the ropes still seem to bother him a bit. So because he didn't really have much of a reaction there, I'm allowing that to go like that. If he was a horse that wanted to react a lot, I would do it both sides, and I'd probably do it for a little while, because you want to keep doing it, and sometimes I've had the odd horse here and there where you need 2 or 3 sessions of the girth rope in order for them to be okay with that pressure, and then we move on to actually saddling. So he did really well there. There was no reaction at all. He didn't even like threaten or kind of puff up a little bit as if he was going to crow hop or buck. So I'm not going to worry about repeating it on the other side unless we run into an issue in the next session, because I'll refresh this in the next session, and then I might do it on the other side. But what I want to do now is kind of where the part 2 of this video comes in, is now we're going to do the saddle and the surcingle. So while we're in here before it rains on us, because the clouds are coming in.